to a January 2014 Chicago Tribune, the National Center for Food and Agricultural Policy states that 85% of U.S. corn is genetically modified. Now, over the past couple of months, since there's been a lot of controversy over GMOs and GMO labeling, it is vital that we know what GMOs actually are, since it is very likely that everyone in this room today ate a product that had a GMO and didn't even know it. Now, I have done much research about GMOs and the prevalence they have in our lives. And by learning about GMOs, you'll understand how scientific creations and discoveries can affect every aspect of our lives without us even knowing it, such as what we put in our mouths. First, I will talk about what GMOs are and when they were first introduced to the public. Second, I will talk about why GMOs are used and how they're used. And finally, I will discuss the controversy surrounding GMOs. So what are GMOs? GMO stands for genetically modified organisms, and they're created through a process known as genetic modification. Now what that means is that scientists will take an organism's DNA and they'll change it by either removing genetic traits from the DNA or adding new traits to the DNA, such as making a crop bigger in size or making a crop resistant to certain pests or insects. GMOs were first introduced to the public during the 1990s with the creation of the Flavor Saver tomato, as you can see right here. Now, the Flavor Saver tomato came as a result of scientists trying to find ways to prolong the freshness of fruits. And they discovered that if they took a certain gene from the tomato, they could isolate it and then clone it so that it would last longer on shelves as opposed to a non-modified tomato. The Flavor Saver tomato was actually used in the tomato paste that was sold in the United States and in Britain in 1996, but because the production costs were too high and because of consumer uncertainty towards the product, they were forced to discontinue selling it. I have just discussed what GMOs are and when they were first introduced. Now I will discuss how and why GMOs are used in the food industry. Now, GMOs, as you can see here, there are a lot of staple crops, such as corn and soybeans in particular, that are used to create base ingredients. Now, these base ingredients, such as high fructose corn syrup, are then used to create a lot of the processed foods that we eat today. For example, like any sweetened good that you ever had, like sodas or baked goods, had high fructose corn syrup, which in this case could have been modified. Now, according to Susan Johnson in the Winter 2014 Sustainable Law and Policy Journal, farmers use GMO seeds because it helps them combat some of the common farming issues that they experience, such as insect damage and using too much pesticides. Also, too, some GMO seeds can actually produce higher yields for farmers, meaning that they could actually produce more at a lower cost. So I've just discussed how and why GMOs are used. Now I will explain the controversy concerning GMOs. Now, a lot of controversy surrounding GMOs is how they impact our health and how they impact the environment especially. Now, the FDA website states that food products that have GMOs go through a very comprehensive several-step process to ensure that they are safe for consumers to consume. And that GMOs have actually been around for much longer than we think. They've been around for 20 years, it's just that we haven't really noticed. However, opponents to GMOs state that just because the FDA says it's safe doesn't really mean it actually is safe. For example, there was a time, I don't know if you guys know, that tobacco was deemed safe by the FDA. So opponents also state that there isn't a lot of long-term research about GMOs to know if they actually are safe for us to consume and safe for the environment. For example, in the same article found in the Winter 2014 Sustainable Development and Law Policy, opponents of GMOs state that the use of them could actually, that the use of GMO crops in the environment could actually produce super weeds, as you can see here, which is much harder to combat than regular weeds, of course. So I've just discussed what GMOs are and the prevalence in our society and in our lives as well. So in conclusion, by learning more about GMOs, you will better understand how everything that's done in the laboratories can affect us here in our classrooms and in our restaurants where we eat. First, I discussed what GMOs are and when they were first introduced to the public. Second, I discussed why and how GMOs are used. And finally, I discussed the controversy surrounding GMOs. So the next time that, after class, next time you grab something to eat, I want you to actually look at the labels and see if they have ingredients such as high fructose corn syrup or cornmeal or soy lecithin, and wonder and ask yourself if you really know what you're eating. Thank you.